So that will be about solving indoor geolocation problem, rapid response button for hospitality. So for that session, we'll have Patrick from PWC joining us on stage, and the discussion will be moderated by Roswell from Sigfox. So please join me to welcome them on stage. Thank you.
Good morning. Winding up to lunch, so we'll have a rousing conversation here. Thanks. I'm Roswell Wolf. I'm the president of Asia Pacific for Sigfox. I'm joined here by Patrick Parodi, who's the managing director for the IoT Solutions Group for PWC, who are deploying some really interesting solutions in the North American marketplace today. So welcome, Patrick. Thank you for making the long journey across to Singapore to be with us here today.
Thanks, Roswell, and thank you for having us in your wonderful region. Very excited to be here. PWC, you're wondering why is PWC here? You've probably heard of the brand. It's a company that's been around for just over 100 years, big in tax and audit, and we're now in the IoT business, although we like to call it connected solutions. And part of that is, an obvious reason. If things are not connected to the internet, sometimes they'll provide more value and they're going to be more secure. And that's really what we've been doing within the team here. So it's been pretty exciting. We've been working with Sigfox now for over 3 years. We started in the remote data collection business. As a firm, we essentially solve our clients' problems with technology. We like to say we're technology advantaged, and we've definitely taken advantage of the Sigfox technology as it relates to extracting data from the physical world and turning that data into action for our clients. So that's really something new for PwC. We're doing this on a global basis, and we now have some actual products in market that we'll talk about today, in particular solving this indoor geolocation problem.
Okay. So in that, you mentioned the 3-year relationship you've had with working with Sigfox technology, and of course there are a lot of other technologies that are out there. What have you seen has been the evolution in terms of how PwC is positioning itself and or the Sigfox technology to address these data capture issues that your clients are facing?
Sure. Now, obviously, as Ludo mentioned, right, it's all about extracting data from the physical world and turning that data into action. We are a trusted brand. We are, related to over Fortune 1000 companies. We can actually reach out to their CEOs and talk to them about how these technologies can solve their problems. Up until now, we've been in the business of providing them solutions or providing them strategy for solving these problems. What's different about our approach now with connected solutions is we're actually solving their problems with these technologies. So to talk specifics, we were working with a very large hospitality brand several years ago that we've had as a client for many years. And we were talking to them about some of the different technologies that are out there, including my former company called Wireless Registry, now Signal Frame. And we were talking about ambient signals and how you can use ambient signals to actually authenticate a space. The fact that we're all sitting in this room, all of our devices are detecting the same MAC IDs of all the different signals that are coming off of all the different transmitters that are in this room. That is unique to this space. And so we were talking to them about that. And then in that process, the head of operations for this large brand, the largest global hospitality brand, said really what we need is we need something to help our housekeepers stay safe. We need some type of rapid response solution. And the problem that we all know exists in this tracking world that we all live in here at Sigfox is indoors, it's very difficult to figure out where an asset or a person might be. So we scratched our heads together and we worked with several different technology partners to deliver what, including Amasense, who was just on your recent panel, to deliver what is really becoming the industry standard for rapid response buttons within the hospitality industry. And Rob Mesro is the head of our group, is our partner here. We also have Devin, and we're deploying this in over 8,000 properties around the world. It has become a standard for the industry. Now, part of the reason why our clients are requesting this solution is there's been some regulatory requirements, particularly in the United States. It turns out housekeepers have been in difficulty and feel unsafe around the world in hotels around the world. And this is a problem that we're solving for the entire industry. And essentially what we're doing is we're enabling Sigfox to be the back end for our indoor geolocation platform, which we've designed with some partners, soup to nuts. And we actually are deploying this, like I said today, it's in over 40 properties in the United States, and we're going global with this.
So tell me a little bit about that. What I've heard you talk about here is that you're really marrying some different types of connectivity technology, both in terms of this ambient noise sensing within the rooms, and then connecting that to a central hub and using Sigfox for transmitting the data effectively. How did you go through that journey? Because I think the idea that there isn't a one-size-fits-all solution is pretty important, and we see a lot of that evident here at Sigfox Connect.
Yeah, we have to solve our clients' problems. That's the main thing. How it gets solved and what technology gets used to solve the problem is not of our clients' concern. We'll take that responsibility. I actually manage a sandbox in our DC office where we orchestrate different sensors, different devices, different networks, and different dashboards into artificial intelligence platform that can allow solutions to exist for our clients and really turning this data that's now being available from the physical world and turn that data into action. What we did like about Sigfox, and we actually started working first with Sigfox on the island of Puerto Rico, and Devin can talk about this if you guys want a bit more at length, but we basically turned a market that did not have this type of technology, and we lit up the whole island. The problem there was that there were slot machines, there were old antiquated slot machines that the government of Puerto Rico had no way of getting the data on to be able to levy the proper tax for that state or environment. So we deployed Sigfox into these, and then we had already had that experience prior to sitting down with this hospitality group. So the key value proposition for us was to find something that was scalable, affordable, and reliable. In particular, with these very large properties, something that really worked well indoors, which Sigfox does, and had the security element, which is something that is often overlooked, but we think is a very key part of the Sigfox value proposition. So we were able to deliver this in record time. The properties that we were deploying.
What was the turnaround from
within,
conception to delivery?
Within 6 months, we had a commercial solution in market in the city of Chicago, which had a very tight deadline in terms of the regulatory environment. And we were able to deploy this with Sigfox, with our device partner, and with our platform, our indoor geolocation platform in the back end. And as a result, now we've been selected by some of the largest brands in the world as the solution. And what's interesting about this device is that it's multi-purpose, right? So when you press it, it'll actually detect all the signals that we've previously scanned. It can or it cannot have an alarm. This is something that each of the big property brands can select. And it uses basically Sigfox to send what we had previously seen are these ambient signals, and we know exactly where someone is within the building. And the security of the different building and hotel can go find the person that's in distress. And it might be a housekeeper or it might be a guest who's suffered from some type of illness and needs help. And so this is something that's been deployed now around the United States.
So what you've done is you've created a platform which is capturing the location information and then pairing that with the Sigfox data that's coming in. Which came first? Was it the platform first, or was the platform a byproduct of needing to capture these different data points?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we like to look at are how we can use existing infrastructure and use it for something completely different. And I think that's where we were quite innovative. And also orchestrating and putting things together that wouldn't normally fit together to find the entire solution and to put our brand that is a trusted brand behind it. So when we designed this device, we spoke to over 300 housekeepers about the ergonomics, about the usability, about the fact that when it drops, it can't break, about the fact that it's got to be somehow water protected. And we went ahead and designed it soup to nuts. We also needed to find a mechanism to do indoor geolocation that didn't require the deployment of additional infrastructure. A lot of these large properties didn't want to have, let's say, beacons, for instance, that they would have to maintain and use. So really what was innovative is that we used the existing ambient signals as a mechanism to do the indoor geolocation and then use what we felt was the best solution for being able to send this data back. Our networks that we're deploying inside of these properties is fully redundant, so we have multiple Sigfox gateways that are detectable from one particular area or one particular device. And then we also have some intelligence that we do in the device and in the back end to be able to pinpoint exactly where someone is when they press the device.
Right.
So that was all something that we developed over time and we've been perfecting over time. We're also looking at technologies to keep this data fresh and keep the system accurate and up and running. And it's just one first step in what we see as being a plethora of use cases that we can bring to these large properties. So I think we decided early on that we're going to focus on indoor and dealing with these big boxes. And so hospitality is a first step. We're also looking at hospitals. Nurses are somewhat in the same situation as housekeepers. They're not allowed to carry smartphones while they're performing their functions every day. And so the ability to have this device, which as I said earlier, also acts as an RFID reader for access control, but could also be your ID badge. We're also looking at college campuses where you could imagine this being used as a way to pay for your meal plan. All of this are applications that we can actually enable once we've deployed inside of this network and we've really solved this indoor geolocation problem.
I want to talk about some of the future use cases, but I want to step back. You made a comment a moment ago about the security element of this. And also speed. We're calling this a rapid response solution, and so speed and security, a couple of things which aren't always associated with Sigfox, which is typically less, or I would say, non-critical applications. So I'd like to get a sense of how you've utilized the technology and where you see the security benefits of it, and equally the requirement where you do have a rapid response requirement, which
right.
it starts to push those boundaries out into some really interesting use cases
right.
for Sigfox.
So what was important for us is, number one, to have the ability to see multiple gateways, right? So we wanted full redundancy built into the system, which we've done with the Sigfox USA team in terms of how we've deployed this infrastructure. We also want to make sure that the device has a long battery life, and our friends at AmoSense have really delivered what we think is the state-of-the-art rapid response device. This device doesn't have to be charged for almost a whole year. Prior to its use. So the ability for a housekeeper to not have to worry about charging it, to be able to take it with them every day when they go to work and have that added level of security. In our interviews with these housekeepers, we found out that they weren't the only ones that were feeling stressed about being on the job. Their families were, their husbands, their children, and to have that sort of security blanket was something that was very critical. And so far, this has been a great application for us, and we're very excited about deploying this on a global scale.
Sure. Now, are you using some of those security features, such as the chipset embedded IDs, to also help control from a personal data standpoint, whether the housekeeping staff or others are concerned about losing their badge or having their information or data stolen?
So as I mentioned earlier, the reason that these large hospitality brands are deploying this in part is the regulatory reason. And we needed to make sure that as a result of different unions getting together and asking governments, local governments, but also state governments to implement these solutions, we wanted to make sure that we were dealing with any of the privacy concerns that these folks had. And they wanted to make sure that they weren't going to be tracked while they were on the job so that management could use it against them. So everything that was designed here was designed for the purpose of providing this rapid response solution. Having said that, now that we're in these properties, and part of the reason why the team of PWC folks that I'm with here are here in Singapore is to find new types of sensors, trackers that we can add to our solution and provide more use cases to our clients. Again, it goes back to what Ludovic was saying yesterday. The cost of tracking something is decreasing at an increasing rate. And we're already seeing with some of the larger properties, even some casino partners, that there's a real demand for additional assets to be tracked inside of these big, large properties. And because we've cracked the nut as it relates to this rapid response solution, we see the ability to layer in all these additional applications on top of what we've already deployed.
Right. The regulatory issue is kind of interesting from two angles. One, obviously, it's an automatic demand creation. So those are always great from a sales standpoint, but always challenging as it relates to being able to deliver something quickly, but also be cost effective. And typically when you have a regulatory requirement, you have to throw some of those criteria out of the window in order to be able to deliver. Did you find anything about bringing this solution together that where Sigfox has given you some advantage, and if so, how was that?
So it's interesting. PwC is obviously a very recognized brand, but we were able to deliver this solution, understanding all of the regulatory and privacy concerns that our clients had, and making sure that we'd wrap this in the right framework of data usage and privacy. We're still able to reach into the market with a solution that we think is very cost effective because it doesn't require the type of infrastructure that, say, Beacons requires for indoor geolocation. So I think we were very innovative in how we developed the solution such that it's scalable, reliable, and also affordable, which really puts us in a unique position as it relates to how this device is going to find itself in the market. And we've already seen how it's affected not only the housekeepers, but these properties as a whole, because now they're thinking, oh my gosh, I now have a Sigfox network in my building. What else could I use it for? And they're coming to us and saying, what else you got? And we're coming to you guys and saying, well, what do you have? And so part of what I've designed within our firm is a sandbox that we have in DC, and we look at all different types of sensors, trackers, devices, all different types of networks, as I said, and then we orchestrate those into solutions for our clients.
Right. So how have you, you talk about the indoor element, we all know that Sigfox as a global network is very well established in terms of outdoor coverage and light indoor coverage. But obviously, if you're dealing with a 1,000-room or 500-room property from that standpoint, you've got the basement levels and the ground and first few floors levels. How have you addressed the deep indoor coverage issue in terms of getting that signal through?
Sure. And that's, again, another Sigfox advantage, or at least a LP-WAN advantage, is the fact that with 900 megahertz, you can really penetrate inside of buildings very well. Also, the cost of deployment of this type of infrastructure is relatively inexpensive. I come from the wireless industry, as does Rob and Devin, and cellular economics are just not going to work. And we heard it from Ludo, and we've been hearing it for years from Sigfox. That's not going to work for these types of use cases, right? So having the partnership with Sigfox and being able to deploy the actual application soup to nuts so that the client doesn't have to know how it gets done, it happens automagically is the way we like to say it, is something that puts us in a unique position to address these concerns. And typically we'll solve these big thorny problems that an industry might have. So we're not just focusing on providing a solution for one client. We really want to provide it across the industry and make sure that it's scalable. And going back to what I think Glenn was saying yesterday, scalability is very important in this industry. We've been talking about IoTs till the cows come home. Really what we're seeing in the market is from some of the large brands and large companies, there's a strong demand for private networks, and I was very excited to hear that Ludo talked about providing some type of private gateway into the Sigfox world, so you can actually build your own network within the network. And I think that's going to be very important because most of our clients, they don't want something that has an IP address, right? People are very concerned that IoT is going to be a backdoor for hackers and all types of nefarious things. We have the trust with the clients. They know that we're not going to deploy anything that's going to affect their existing network. They like the fact that this is a separate network relative to everything else that they've got. It's interesting because it leverages Wi-Fi, it leverages Bluetooth, but it doesn't connect to Bluetooth or to Wi-Fi. So that's why these properties are perfect environments for us to work in. We're very excited to work with the likes of Here and Google and others to build a geolocation platform that leverages all ambient signals, not only indoors but also outdoors. But this was the difficult problem to solve, and this device basically is the result of that.
Right. And did you say that this platform you've got in terms of Geoloc is your own customized Geoloc database, or are you also using third-party database like we have here Technologies, which is exhibiting here, and they're part of the Atlas Wi-Fi program to be available? How have you looked at that issue of Geoloc?
As Rob likes to say, we're technology advantaged, so we don't like to say agnostic because that sounds a bit negative. We work with anybody who's got something that allows our solution to perform better, to be more affordable, and allows us to scale. So, we're happy to, we're not a technology company per se. We have filed for some IP as it relates to this because we want to protect ourselves as we grow. But as a firm, really what we want to do is we want to, solve big problems and build trust in society. Trust is a word that we use a lot, but that doesn't really get implemented in a lot of technologies. I think people want to solve problems with technology, but a lot of times they think that technology comes first. What we do is we focus on what is the problem that our client has, and how do we orchestrate often things that you wouldn't normally consider working together in a way that solves the problem. So an example, we're seeing the ability for cameras to compute object recognition, but also facial recognition, which is a topic that is a subject of the day that we're also looking at. But even if you look at how a camera can detect this bottle of water, for instance, you can imagine a very small, inexpensive camera that can count the number of bottles of water that were within the view of that camera, and then use a Sigfox network to send the actual count. Now, nobody would think about putting a camera on the edge of a Sigfox network, because when you think about camera, you're thinking about images, you think about streaming, you think about 5G, LTE,
and that's not the Sigfox sweet spot. That's your 5G network.
But it's also, the sweet spot for PWC is extracting data from the physical world, and the technology is already there. There are chipsets that are capable of doing that on the edge of a Sigfox network. There's algorithms that are readily available that will know the difference between this bottle and this microphone. And so why not leverage those existing technologies off the shelf and turn them into something that our clients can leverage to solve one of their problems?
Well, future technologies is a great way to do it, but let's step back just a little bit. You mentioned a minute ago that obviously the first use case, which is really starting to deliver business value today to your customer, is the rapid response solution for housekeeping. But then we're extracting data, or we have an infrastructure in place now which is going to do other things. I think businesses and the people here that are looking to bring value to their customers are saying, okay, how can I actually bring value today to my customers? What are you starting to think about, or what are you starting to deploy for use cases that can actually leverage that data or take advantage of the technologies that have already been put in place to do?
Yeah, so we like to talk about the fourth industrial revolution, and I think Ludo talks about it too in maybe different words when he talks about zero G, and he talks about extracting data from the physical world. And it's not just about sensors and temperature and trackers. It could be something like we've done with our indoor geolocation platform, right? We're surrounded by all these ambient signals, these MAC IDs, these SSIDs. How do you leverage that data? It could also be sound. I mean, we're seeing what natural language processing and the likes of Siri and Google Home and Alexa have done to us as humans and how we interact with computers. A lot of the partners and companies that we work with, some of these large brands, for instance, they're worried about these technologies. They're worried about things like facial recognition, but they realize that these artificial intelligent technologies and these algorithms are going to solve problems. And so they need someone to go to say, we've trusted you for hundreds of years with our audits and our financial data. What are we going to do now that everything is getting digitized, right? Why is it that a large hotel like the Sands, if they were to deploy a natural language processing, why would the data go to Google or Amazon? Why can't they have a mechanism to keep that data inside of their network and provide the quality response to their clients to create a better guest experience? Why do they not have the ability to track where their luggage carts are? Have you ever been to a hotel and walked down the hall and there's someone's breakfast that's there on the tray and it stinks up the whole place? Why is that breakfast tray there? Why can't the housekeeping know that the breakfast tray is outside the door and that somebody should go pick it up? These are all problems that can be solved with technology the right way, and that's part of what we're doing inside of our sandbox.
Right. And do you see, so for instance, the rapid response button you've got, what's the next step for that? Do you see the same Sigfox technology inside being leveraged to other types of devices to come and collect the dirty tray, or to be utilized for other services, or even guest services?
Absolutely. Like I said, I mean, what's interesting is now our clients are looking at us differently. Most people, as I'm sure you guys are already thinking, why PWC? But now that we've delivered a solution and we've delivered it in a very cost-effective and reliable way, they come to us and say, well, what else can we do? We now have an IoT network in our premise, right? Thanks to Sigfox. What are the other applications? What are the other use cases? How do we make our environment more efficient? How do we track more assets now that the price of tracking these things is decreasing? And so we're already seeing, things like refrigerated carts, luggage carts, right? I mean, what if you take your luggage cart when you check in the hotel and you put it in your room? The hotel has no idea where that luggage cart is. Now we know that it's getting more cost effective to track that luggage cart. or the cot for the extra bed inside your room when you're traveling with your kids. Those are all things that now can be tagged, they can be tracked, and we can deliver the dashboard that provides our clients the ability to know where their assets are in real time.
Yeah. Now, this badge that you've got was designed specifically because of a regulated requirement for employee security. But what about workforce management? Is your client base able to now say, right, I've got to have housekeeping staff or security staff at the right place at the right time? If I've had a large convention, exit the building, and now I've got to get to those rooms quickly, are they marrying that with any workforce data to be able to better deploy their staff?
Absolutely, and we're also working with, like I mentioned earlier, facial and object recognition technologies that can enable that exact use case potentially without using Sigfox. But again, they're using infrastructure that already exists. They already have cameras that are there for security reasons. Why not use that exact same data flow for detecting objects in the physical world, or potentially, in a way, an anonymized and privacy protected way, being able to detect people and know where they are or where they should be. Those are all use cases that we're now bringing into the market and solving the problems for our clients. The key for us is, our clients, we sit down with them, they tell us this is their particular issue. That's how we ended up in Puerto Rico, for instance. And then we say, okay, well, let's go ahead and orchestrate a solution in our sandbox, and then we'll test it first to make sure that it's type accepted from within PWC, and then we deploy it into the network.
So if I take that right, so if we take that beyond the standpoint of a rapid response button, the metric is the response in the time that we want it. What are some of the other KPIs or metrics that your customers are either already seeing measurable results on? Typically it's operational performance or cost savings, or even in some cases customer satisfaction or employee satisfaction. Sure. Were there other metrics that were used in evaluating the selection and post the selection and implementation that are being able to be measured as real live results of the solution?
Yeah. So obviously, we're a data company, we're a financial services company. What gets measured gets done is kind of the tagline. And what we've kind of focused on, and the reason why we're very excited about working with Sigfox, is about making dumb things smart, right? How can you put a sensor on a device? How do you track an asset very cost effectively and extract that data? And those are, that's one of the key reasons why we've been working with you guys, and the reason why we've had so much success thus far.
Right. Okay. So you talked earlier in your presentation, Patrick, about the 6-month timeline that it took you to from standing start to deployment to be able to do that. But is that the full story? I think a lot of people that are here are looking at a lot of different products and different solutions, some of which have been born out of a really long development cycle. We've been working with AmmoSense for a couple of years now as an example from a device standpoint. What's the real story in terms of the evolution from those early slot machines into really realizing that? Because I think a lot of people want to know, what is the timeline that they should be preparing for, either in terms of finding the right partners that it can move quickly, or do I build it myself from scratch, and what am I looking at in terms of life cycle to design, develop, test before going out? What have you experienced?
Yeah, so our strategy is, has been, sell, design, and build, as opposed to build, design, and sell. And I think that's what puts us in a unique position, is sort of a, we don't like to use the systems integrator word, but that's essentially what we're providing. We look at this as a product business. We also, we've had to deal with internal issues as to how we change the mentality within PWC. This is a new business model for a firm that's 100 years old, so it took a while to get us there. But now that we're there, we're actually seeing the adoption and the acceleration of the use cases around connected solutions. We're seeing different vertical segments. So hospitality is sort of our initial environment where we're playing very well in. But we're looking at hospitals. Hospitals are notorious for having a lot of assets that need to be tracked. There's been a lot of different technologies, including ultra wideband and RFID and Bluetooth. We're trying to understand, how do we get into that space because of the trust that we've built with our clients. We're also looking at college campuses. You know, we were with a large college campus in the United States recently where the head of operations said when you're a student now and you go to school, you actually go back in time. Because at home you're used to ordering Uber Eats, you're used to getting your Lyft to get to somewhere. You order something on Amazon, it shows up in front of your front door.
Of course, it's Grab in Asia, not
you go to
Uber and Lyft.
That's right. You Grab. You go to college. That's not a good word, particularly in the context of hospitality. You go to college, and now you order something on Amazon, and you have to go to the you have to go to the campus post office, which closes at 5 o'clock, and then you're stuck. Right, so you actually, as a college student, apparently now the technologies that you're used to at home, you actually don't have on a college campus, and that shouldn't be the case. So how do we bring these technologies into these types of environments? These are great environments because you have people coming in and out, public, private, staff. You have large buildings in some cases that have to deal with these indoor geolocation problems. So these are environments where you know, we as our next step, where we're going to be focusing a lot of our attention.
Yeah, I keep hearing that hint of the hybrid story again. You know, marrying a lot of different technologies, which is, you know, really the zero-G network is supposed to be complementary to these technologies. Obviously, we'd like to see a lot more devices connected to our network, but that hybridization, do you see that as a growing trend? Do you see the simplicity of the Sigfox device and the Sigfox messaging finding a niche by itself, and to the extent that you're marrying different connectivity technologies, influencing your decisions on solution platform, and from a customer standpoint, whether they feel that this gives them a greater freedom to right-size a solution to their requirement.
So obviously, you know, we'd love if Sigfox were covered all over the world and this cost 2 cents, right? I mean, I think that's what, you know, Ludo was professing last year in Berlin. We're getting closer to that with this $1 chipset. But that's not the case. And so we're, you know, again, we're technology advantage. For us, it's the bearer, but we do like the philosophy that's been taking place here at Sigfox. We like the fact that, you know, like I said earlier, the security aspect, the encryption aspect of the data, the fact that it's not got an IP address, that it's not in the same way that Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and other open technologies are. We also believe that there is a very large market opportunity for private LPWAN networks. Yes, I mean, there are certain aspects of the technology that we'd like to see evolve faster, and we're having conversations with Sigfox now that we've got some real business. In particular, things like over-the-air updates, which is something that, you know, Laura does. But at the same time, this is a great relationship because we're not going to be a network operator as PWC. And to be able to have a partner in crime that can help us deploy quickly and build out these networks in these properties, in these big buildings, is something that we're very excited about and continuing with Sigfox.
Right, okay. Well, not about partner in crime. I guess the only criminal act is our very low connectivity prices in that equation.
That was good. That was good.
Talk to me a little bit as we come to the conclusions here about, you mentioned earlier on some of the other use cases you're seeing with the same or similar application. You mentioned healthcare for one.
Yeah.
And is that so far restricted to the U.S. or North American marketplace? And where do you see that? Obviously, we'd like to see those kinds of things here, but you don't have the same regulatory driver.
Sure.
Let's hear about what's next for this capability using Sigfox, and where do you see it elsewhere in the world?
Sure. So first of all, we're a global firm. I mean, I won't bore you with how the structure of PWC works. I'm still trying to figure it out myself. But we are a global firm, so most of the brands that we work with are global companies, and we can deliver the solution anywhere in the world. The types of things that we're looking at, whenever we can bring in existing infrastructure, existing technologies like we're doing with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, to leverage cameras, to leverage existing infrastructure, that puts us in a competitive advantage. The beauty of the Sigfox network is, again, it's your price point, is the ability for these short bursty messages to exist in the physical world in a very cost-effective way. And for us, that's the holy grail. The more data we can extract from the physical world, the more we can get our clients addicted to that data, the more we can solve their problems and create value. And I think that's what's unique about the Connected Solutions team is that, again, we've taken a sort of a managed service approach to this business, which up until now, you know, we've never done. So we're very excited We'd love to engage with the ecosystem that's here today. Like I said, I've got this sandbox environment, so it's very easy to connect with us, to bring your sensors, bring your applications. And you know, I hate to use the peanut butter and chocolate analogy, and you know, I don't know if it works well in Singapore. If Reese's are very popular, but it's when you bring together things that wouldn't normally go together that really innovation happens. That's what we've seen with this particular device and this particular product, and we want to create those incidences of those types of situations happening. So that's why, you know, this ecosystem is exactly the type of environment that we want to engage with.
Right, right. I don't know if it's chocolate and peanut butter, but certainly I think Sigfox has long recognized that collaboration across the whole value chain, from device to application to systems integrator, is key. You know, we're providing a core element in the transmission layer, but that doesn't get utilized unless you've got a lot of different companies acting, and we've seen some of those solutions here. The Nichi Gas announcement yesterday, getting to 850,000 gas meters, that doesn't happen without all of the partners collaborating on to getting an end result. And of course, from a connectivity standpoint, you know, we've got many countries in Asia now covered, from Japan, smaller markets like Singapore and Taiwan, and we'll launch India early next year with our network deployment, and we're working on a few projects in China, which we think will be a big marketplace, and that volume will help to drive down the cost. Do you see, now you've mentioned healthcare, from a nursing hospitality, a nursing staff standpoint. Do you see healthcare as a particular vertical that you're focusing on, or is it really the individual rather than the facility?
So we see healthcare as our next big area of focus, and Devin actually can talk to anybody who wants to see where we're at. You know, RTLS has been sort of the industry standard for real-time location tracking of assets inside of hospitals, and we've seen some rethink by a lot of these large healthcare providers around new technologies. So I think now is the time is ripe. We're actually building some of this stuff in our sandbox to try to take to them, so that we've tested it in our environment prior to taking it into this environment. You know, they're dealing with their whole regulatory and compliance issues that is very different than hospitality. But again, we've got expertise in the field. We've got partners who spend, you know, their whole career in this industry. And that's really what puts PWC in a unique position. We have relationships with the CEOs of the Fortune 1000. So if you have a technology or a solution that can solve a problem for one of these large firms, and you're having a hard time doing it as a startup or as a small company, come into my sandbox, and we'll you know, try to see how we can get this technology at least visible to these clients. I mean, that's how I ended up at PWC. I had my own company working on ambient signals, and then Rob and I met with this large hospitality brand, and that's kind of how we created this. So I'd love to see that type of situation occur again as a result of being here in Singapore with you guys today.
And in bringing this solution to marketplace, is it PwC really deploying globally on your own, or are you looking for partnerships either in those markets you don't serve, or indeed where, because of your auditing relationships with some enterprises, you can't sell other stuff to? What kind of partnerships would you be looking for worldwide?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, obviously this, and part of the reason why we filed for some IP around this solution is that we are looking for folks who might be able to deploy this. Now, to your point, you know, the regulatory environment around the world isn't as potentially stringent or exists in the same way that it does in the United States. But at the end of the day, you know, this is a solution that solves a big problem that people weren't talking about. The hospitality industry was not openly talking about these issues, but evidently, now that we've deployed this, we know that it's an issue. And it's something that, and it's a problem that was a big thorny problem that needs to be addressed, and that we've actually solved. And we've built trust not only with our clients, but also with the housekeepers that are using this on a daily basis.
Right. Super. So we've heard about speed to market, security capability, personal safety of individuals, an integrated platform for multi or hybrid communications technology which complement one another rather than compete with one another for time. And we've heard about being able to use the same data from a single use case activity now driving potential for other businesses. Have I missed anything that's key in terms of the PWC hospitality story?
I think you got it. And at the end of the day, we're about making dumb things smart. So that's why we're very excited to be working with Sigfox.
Well, we're excited about the solution, and we see a lot of use case, not just in North America, as I said, but worldwide. I think we've just got a few seconds left. If there are any questions, happy to take them. But Patrick is here along with his colleagues, Rob Mesro. Thanks for making the trip across from North America, Rob and Devin, to join us. But we're happy to take any questions.
Cool.
Okay, terrific. Well, thanks again, Patrick, and we'll look forward to seeing more of you in Asia soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody.
So thanks a lot, Patrick and Roswell, for that great discussion. The stage will be resumed after lunch at 2:15, and we will be talking about senior people and about solution for remote assistance. So please join us back at 2:15. Thank you.